Get mantra and meditation MP3s at jasongallant.ca.
A powerful weapon that is wielded many times in life is the weapon of guilt. You've probably had conversations with people at some time in your life and they guilt you into doing things or try to build up the feeling of guilt so that way you are obligated to play according to their idea. Now, of course, their idea is also, in many cases, driven by suffering, because if it wasn't, they would not be forcing you into their plan, right? Or their idea. I mean, there are lots of times where spiritual teachers have students who try to wield guilt against them. And the student will try to call them all sorts of names to get the teacher to play to their ego or to the suffering that they are experiencing in that moment. Like, oh teacher, you're not very spiritual because you didn't do this and this, and I read somewhere that that's the way spiritual people should act and you're not doing it. So you're going to experience this as a spiritual seeker. You're going to experience this war within, which is the movement of truth or the movement of guilt. Guilt is not freedom. Guilt is a chain that binds. It is suffering. And if something is driven by suffering, that is not your heart running the show at that moment. That's not your heart. If you do something from a place of love, that's much different, a much different experience than doing something from a place of guilt, obligation. So at some point you have to make a choice. What type of life do you want to live? One that is driven by your own love, your own movement of truth, or one that is constantly placating the suffering of other people, and therefore being enslaved by it. You see, guilt, shame, these are all experiences within you that also have to be neutrally observed and absorbed back into the source that you are. Running away from them or listening to them and constantly moving according to guilt, that's not the same as honesty, integrity. That's not the same as love. For instance, I don't abuse my cat because I'll feel guilty if I do. I treat my cat with respect because I love my cat. It's not because guilt is running the show, you see? It's different. That's a different paradigm. So if you're feeling guilt, and a lot of people do, they feel guilt whenever they feel free. They feel guilt whenever they feel okay. They feel guilt when they're doing all right in life. Become free of that. Become free of the guilt itself. And then see what you have to share. Because, like I always say, the freer you are, the more of yourself you will naturally share. It will just be a very organic, natural movement of things. Maybe it's through a nice conversation. Maybe it's through something you do. Maybe it's through something you say at the right time. Sometimes you don't even know where that thing that you said came from. But it's the movement of you that is what you're here to share. It's not through dancing to the suffering of people around you. It's not through being enslaved by that. And some of these people you love, some of these people are very close to you, but if you constantly toss the ball of suffering back and forth, you get stuck in the game of suffering. You can love without suffering. Love exists at the same time as these different energies swirl around you. You do not have to hold on to specific experiences of suffering with another person in order to love them. This will help those people in your relationships more so than getting caught up in the drama of guilt. Like I said before, sometimes it's a math game. One person is suffering, and then you have two people suffering. That's worse than one person suffering, right? So at least be the one that isn't suffering, so that way you can help the other one out of it. When they're ready, of course. Because not everybody is ready to let go of the game of suffering. Some people will try very hard to pull you into suffering with them. And you just keep holding your center. Love anyway. Be anyway, and realize you do not have to suffer just because another person is suffering. And that is how you hold the light for people. That's how you show them the way. You still care, but you don't suffer. The two can exist at the same time. It really makes sense if you think about it. Ironically, those of you who are not thinking about it already know that it makes sense. If you are free from suffering, why would you ever choose to go into it? So don't let guilt dominate you. Don't let guilt direct you. Let the heart do that. When you sit, when you are free of suffering, when you are free of guilt, when you're free of anxiety, free of worry, free of depression, free of all of these things that are suffering, then see what happens. I hope this helps you on your spiritual journey. Take care for now.